City in the North by Marta Wells, who is a new author to me, and upon looking her up, she was the first female president of the Science Fiction Writers of America, SFWA, and was seemingly fairly prolific in the world of short fiction and editing, doing some work on anthologies and short story collections, but she did have a number of published novels, and this one intrigued me because it's about a couple of people going to an alien planet where there is one single continent populated by a native race of ape-like beings, which you can see on the cover there. And this is an illustration from Vincent DeFate, I think is how you say his name. And I got a comment recently on my last book call from a viewer saying that he and his work doesn't get enough credit today. So there you go, a seemingly quite obscure book. I think this one only has a handful of reads and reviews on Goodreads. I am actually nearly finished with it, and I'll be reviewing it in a video within the next couple of weeks. Next up, we've got Foundation and Chaos by Greg Bear. And this book is, I think, the second book in the second Foundation trilogy, which was not written by Isaac Asimov, but it was authorized by his estate, with the other two books in this trilogy being written by Gregory Benford and David Brin. Now, I haven't read Foundation, and I don't own any of those books, so this will probably sit on my shelf until I do complete that collection. But I've read a bit of Greg Bear in the past, and I've appreciated his work, so potentially we'll do a read-through of the entire Foundation series at some point. This next one really confused me when I picked it up because I wasn't entirely clear what the title was. So there you go, you can try and work that out for yourself before I read it out. But I don't really know all that much about this one. So the title is Terry Nation's Blake's 7 Scorpio Attack, a novel by Trevor Hoyle, based on the scripts written by Chris Boucher, James Follett and Robert Holmes. And this one seems to be some sort of space opera tale following a mission on a spaceship called the Scorpio. So don't really know too much about that, or the author, or those scripts that it was based on. So let me know if you have any additional context for this one. The next one then is Michael Crichton, The Lost World, which is the sequel to Jurassic Park, which is potentially Michael Crichton's most well-known, most well-read book, and a book that I've not read, even though I do love the film adaptation by Steven Spielberg. And I've actually not read any Michael Crichton so far, but from what I can gather, his books are fairly entertaining, fairly light reads. I hope that doesn't sound too insulting to Crichton, but that's just what I've heard from some people that I follow. But do let me know if you've read Michael Crichton and you do really recommend his work, because I do own a copy somewhere up here of Jurassic Park and a few of his other techno-thriller kind of works. Next up, we've got a book from an author that I haven't been particularly enjoying, but I've not been reading his most well-read books, and that is Philip Jose Farmer's To Your Scattered Bodies Go, which I believe is the first book in the Riverworld series, which does have a decent amount of acclaim. It does have a decent amount of fans, and I think even though I've not particularly enjoyed the work from PJF that I've read so far, I would be willing to give him another go, particularly because of how renowned this book is and just how often I've seen it pop up on lists of top science fiction novels to read. From PJF to PKD, who is an author I've enjoyed a lot more, we've got The Man in the High Castle, which is probably one of 2, 3 or 4 PKD books that are recommended the most when people are talking about their favourite works from him, when people are talking about the best work from him, and when people are talking about the best science fiction books ever written. And I have been enjoying PKD's work quite a bit, so I do want to read this one just because of how much reverence it seems to hold. There's something in here actually which is interesting. I always like finding these weird little things tucked away in these old books. We've got a Marvel card from a Marvel annual, which is of the character Mega Red, who I have never heard of or seen before. So that is going to make an interesting bookmark for my PKD reading. If you watch one of my recent videos where I reviewed Count Zero and Altered Carbon, you'll know that I've been on a bit of a cyberpunk kick lately, which extended to me watching Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, which I did review in one of my videos as well, and I've loved that film. And so because I've been on this cyberpunk kick, I was seeking out some critically acclaimed cyberpunk works, and that landed me on The Windup Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi, I think is how you say that name. And this is a cyberpunk story which is set in Thailand, I believe. Yeah, it's set in Bangkok, which I think is interesting, and I'm actually visiting Bangkok later this year, so maybe I'll save this one for when I'm traveling, although it is a bit of a chunky book, so I'm not sure how much space I'm going to have in my luggage. But there's a quote on the front here from Time magazine which says, "Bacigalupi is a worthy successor to William Gibson," which is high praise indeed. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know just how much I've loved William Gibson's writing and the work that I've read from him so far. So we'll see if Bacigalupi and The Windup Girl can stand up to the greatness of William Gibson, which is a very high bar in my opinion. Speaking of cyberpunk novels set in Asia, we've got another one here with Ian McDonald's River of Gods, another SF Masterworks edition here, with a cover art that I'm not particularly enthralled with, and that tends to be the case on these SF Masterworks editions. Not always, there are some that I like, but I think generally they're a little bit lazy and they're not particularly memorable. But this is the only copy that I could find at a fairly decent price. And this one is a cyberpunk story set in India, and I'm interested in reading that because I do think it will lend a slightly different lens to this genre, in the same way that I'm sure The Windup Girl will. But again, this is a fairly lengthy book, so I've got a hell of a lot of cyberpunk reading to do over the next couple of years. The last cyberpunk book that I picked up then is Mirror Shades, which is edited by Bruce Sterling. This is an anthology of cyberpunk short stories, and it has quite a cool glasses cover there, which has this reflective design, and it includes some familiar suspects in the world of cyberpunk, such as Pat Cadigan and William Gibson, but there are also stories in here from the likes of Greg Bear, John Shirley, Rudy Rucker, Bruce Sterling himself, and Lewis Shiner. So I'm intrigued to read some more cyberpunk short stories, particularly since I enjoyed Burning Chrome by William Gibson so much, and hopefully some of these other authors nail the tone and the themes of cyberpunk in these stories. The last book here then is by an author that I have only read one book from, which was The Drowned World, and this book is The Crystal World, which I think is one of the books in J.G. Ballard's Disaster trilogy, and this is kind of an interesting design on this edition because you've got this almost grid-like notebook texture, which I'm not sure comes across really well in the camera, but it makes the text on the book itself incredibly difficult to read. So I'm not sure that I'm particularly excited about this edition, but I found it for a relatively low cost, and I really want to read some more J.G. Ballard because I did enjoy The Drowned World so much and thought that his writing was excellent. And the concept of this one did really intrigue me because it's about this zone in the middle of Africa where there is this spreading phenomenon turning everything and everyone into these glittering crystal formations. And I'm sure that Ballard's description of this petrified area will be absolutely incredible to read, so I'm looking forward to getting back to some J.G. Ballard. So a smaller haul today that ranges from a random lot that I purchased based on curiosity to some targeted acquisitions because I want to dive deeper into the world of cyberpunk. Thank you very much for watching, liking and commenting on this video. If you are interested in seeing some reviews of any of these books, feel free to subscribe as well because that will be coming up over the coming weeks and months. Thank you very much for watching again, and I'll see you on the next one.